Okay, we're going to solve the mystery of the strange things that are on the stage, hanging off the wall here. And we're going into this section called, What Kind of Learner Are You? What kind of learner are you? Okay. Make sure I'm ready here. So we talked about rapport. Did I put it underneath there? Okay. We talked about rapport, interaction. We can come up with different sorts of situations and activities where people interact with each other. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But we are going to talk about one of the other big four things there, which was planning and preparation. Planning and preparation, that's something that you can learn how to do. And when you go to school to train to be a teacher, one of the things that they drill into you and make you practice over and over again is how to make a lesson plan. A lesson plan so that you are disciplined into knowing all of the elements that go into making a good teaching session with your students. And like we mentioned before, it is student or learner focused because they are the ones that are supposed to be learning the information, and we want them to be able to apply the information in their everyday experience. And we have different elements of a lesson plan. I'm going to come back to what kind of learner are you in just a second. Let's see if I can get the page to turn. Elements of a lesson plan. And I have some handouts here that I'll give to the credit students in just a moment. But these are common elements. Not every lesson plan format has all of these things. Some of them are designed in different ways. But one of the things is objectives. Like, what do you plan for the learners to be able to do by the time that they are finished with your class? What should they know? And then we have this part of it, which is called pre-assessment. Pre-assessment is when you find out stuff about your students. Sometimes you know who your students are going to be before they even arrive in class. You get a class list. Maybe you get a picture. Maybe there is a file on the student somewhere and you can see what kind of grades that they've gotten so far. You can see who else has taught them. You do a little bit of investigation because you like to know who you're going to teach, but you're not going to know everything just by looking at pieces of documents and documentation. So you might do a few things, like maybe one of your first things you do when you start your class is, of course, you're going to ask people, you know, what's your name and what are some of your interests. Sometimes you give out a interest inventory and you have them fill in, these are things that I like, this is the last book I read, these are things that really interest me, these are my favorite foods, these are the places I've been in the world, this is what I hope to get out of this course. You know, all kinds of things, you know, because you're trying to get a sense of who this person is, and you want to be able to find a way, maybe like a little hook or something a little handle you can grab onto, like, you know, maybe their interest is something really unique, and maybe you notice that they are so interested in this that they dress a certain way, and you notice that they have something of it on their notebook or something like that. Like, I love comic books. I just love comic books. You know, think, wow, how old are you? But I love comic books. You know, and they're wearing their Spider-Man T-shirt, and you know, and they've got a Batman backpack, and you know, their Superman pen and everything. It's like, wow, you're 32 years old and you really do love comic books and superheroes or something. And like, you know that if you talk about that in some way, you've got their attention right away. You know, and you might need that in your back pocket one day when you're just, I've got to find a way to reach this person. There's just, well, I guess I've got to pull the superhero comic book card out of my back pocket and play it, because that's what's gonna reel them in. And you know, it's the same thing when you're soul winning. You talk to people and you find out what they've been doing, what they're interested in, and all of a sudden you just use that as like, oh yeah, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, you've somehow turned that around. Now we're talking about the gospel, and you know, everything leads back to the gospel. But just to get them to stand there and talk to you, you know, you got to find something. So you take an interest. So you have an interest inventory. This is part of your pre-assessment. But one thing that's really interesting is part of pre-assessment is learning how people learn best. Because not everybody learns the same way or likes to do the same kinds of activities. For instance, we're in church. Pastor Schaller says to Pastor Steve, go tell everyone to stand up. So Pastor Steve goes up to the pulpit. He says, all right, everyone, let's all stand up. Let's stretch. And now, go find somebody that you don't know and ask them what their needs are and pray with them. And some people are like, they go right back down in their chair. I am not doing that. I am not doing that. And then some people are like, woohoo, socialization time. I'm going to go find someone. Hey, I never met you before. And these people are shocked, like, oh, who is this? You know? So there's some activities that some people like, and there's the same activity somebody else might just hate. You know? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But, you know, but people respond to different things and they learn in different ways. And so that's what all these things up here have to do with. I had to search long and hard to find some of these objects. This thing is supposed to be an owl, I think. It was a joke gift from my sister a couple of Christmases ago. I don't know why she got it for me. Still don't. But it's at home and it doesn't have a name. I haven't named it. I'm not that attached to it. I don't even know why I still have it, except I'm afraid that my sister's going to come visit me sometime and say, where's that owl I got you? And now it is serving its purpose. Now I know why I have this in the plan of God, okay? Because I don't have a teddy bear at home, but this is supposed to represent a teddy bear, okay? Use your imagination, try hard, okay? A teddy bear. Some people are teddy bear learners. Over here, this is a magnifying glass that I borrowed from my science teacher, Mr. Doug Jansen. And some people are magnifying glass learners. Okay. This was fun to buy. These are great big paper clips. Black and white, can everyone see them? I don't know where you'd use these in everyday life, but they're making great props tonight. Visual aids, something that's important if you're a teacher. Every once in a while, some people really get off to visual aids instead of just looking at you or listening to you all the time. Ooh, what's that? Here we are. We got giant paper clips. Okay, some people are paper clip learners. And last but not least, over here, look at this. Ooh. A slinky. A slinky. They make them in colors now. I picked blue because I like blue. Some people are slinky learners. Okay? Slinkies, paper clips, magnifying glasses, and using your imagination, teddy bears. You're going to do a little exercise right now. You don't have to necessarily do this with anybody else. You can do it all by your lonesome. It's called, What Kind of Learner Are You? Okay. Thank you, Andrew. All right. Are you a slinky? Are you a teddy bear? Are you a paper clip? Are you a magnifying glass? The directions say all learners are predominantly one of these types. Do you want to help hand some out? Thank you. Everyone basically falls predominantly into one of these categories. And what I want you to do, according to the directions that I gave, it says, you need, as a teacher, to take this fact into consideration when you plan your lesson, because you want to be able to reach every kind of learner that you could have in your classroom. Thank you. Oh, good, now I have my own. Now, this is part of the process of what we call differentiation or differentiated instruction, because not everybody learns the same way that we teach, because we usually probably teach the way that we learn. Because we want to help students learn by giving them what they need to learn. And that was one of the things that somebody said at the beginning of the class in that first exercise, that my teacher gave me what I needed for me to learn. So what I want you to do is answer the first 5 questions. And it doesn't have to be deep, sophisticated answers. You might be just guessing off the top of your head. What do you think paperclip learners are like? You know, the paperclip is a symbol. Okay? What do you think magnifying glass learners are like? Magnifying glass. What do you think of when you think of people with magnifying glasses? What do you think a slinky learner is like? And then, what do you think teddy bear learners are like? Or teddy owls, or whatever you want to call them? And then tell me which category you think you fit into. All right. Let's give this a try. First of all, if you think that you are a paperclip, raise your hand. Let's see, do we have any paperclips in here? What, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're mostly on this side of the room. No paperclips over here. No. Well, I mean, it just depends on what you thought it was, and then you're saying, no, that's not me. Okay, I'm going to put the teddy bear over here. So here we are, paperclips. So what do you think a paperclip learner is? If you were a paperclip person, raise your hand again. Okay, tell me what you think a paperclip learner is, Pirio. Kinesthetic learner? So use vocabulary that everyone can use. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, it's fine. Thank you. Is that what you thought also? Really? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, yes, you got the right idea. People that are like paperclip learners, they like to be organized, they like things to be accurate, they like to keep things together, as people have mentioned, and they like things like lists and timelines, and they like to remember things and describe things. You know, they're very linear in their thinking, you know, and they want things to be a certain way, and they like to master tasks. You know, if I'll do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, you know. Paperclip. Okay. So down below, you can see there's that word mastery. They're into mastery of things. They feel they've accomplished something when they followed all the directions. You know, people that can put together like IKEA furniture. You know? Mm-hmm. Mastery tasks. You know, I follow all the directions and I've got a bookcase and I feel great. And some people look at those directions and they go crazy, or they just decide, I'm not going to look at that. I can figure this out and put it together my own way. Okay? Magnifying glass. How many people classify themselves as a magnifying glass person? Come on, there's more than that. Okay. Okay, so, Bob, what do you think a magnifying glass learner is like? Okay. They really like to look into things. Okay. They ask lots of why questions. They want to know why this, why that. They want to know how things work. They would like to take things apart and put them back together again. Okay? And one of the things it says here on my sheet says they would like to reinvent the wheel. You know, I'm going to figure out a new way to do this. But I'm going to look into it and I'm going to figure it out. Paula Lange was telling me about her husband, Pastor Brian, who on Sunday afternoon after church went home and looked online to find out a way to fix his iPhone. And he took it all apart, all the little tiny screws, and he labeled every single one and where they went. He made a little diagram, and then he took the information off the internet and tried to figure out. He took apart an old iPhone and took the corresponding part out of that, put it into the new iPhone, and then had to put it all back together and hope that it worked. He loved it. He loved it. Okay? It worked. It worked. They like reasoning, and they want things explained, and they like to explain. They like to develop a plan. They like discovering things. And they question everything. Questioning. Do paperclip people question everything? No, they ask, what are the directions? Okay. I'm going to go do it now. Thank you very much. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'll do it very well. Thank you very much. And I'll let you know when I'm done. Slinkies. How many people here think you're a slinky? I'm always curious. Oh, Pastor Arto thinks he's a slinky. Anyone else? Pastor Dan? You think you're a slinky too? I'm curious. What do you think a slinky learner is like?
I just went by the slinky commercials. They have them going down like step by step. So the idea I got was like step by step learn.
Okay. That sounds a little bit more like maybe like a paperclip thing, like step by step by step. What do you think a slinky learner would be?
It's very unpredictable where it falls.
Okay.
And how it falls and just yeah.
What
and also it's flexible.
That's a good word. They're very flexible, go with the flow kind of people. Yes, random could go in there. I mean, maybe if you took it to a negative extreme, you could say that. But I mean, you need these kinds of people. You need these kinds of people. If everybody was just one type, oh my gosh, it would be not. So there are some things that would just never happen. It would never get done, and life would be kind of boring. They're flexible. They go with their flow. They are creative. They're creative people. So I was interested in seeing like, oh, here's a guy that likes to write poetry. Here's a guy that likes to write music, and he's interested in all kinds of creative things. Yes, it's interesting that you would say you're kind of a slinky. You're very self-expressive. And you like, I said already, create. They imagine. They come up with all kinds of ideas. But as Laura Jo said, they can be kind of random sometimes. And for some other kinds of people, maybe a paperclip person, or maybe a magnifying glass person, a slinky person could be really annoying. I have to work together with that person in my group. I just want to work by myself and follow the directions and get this done. He wants to like think of all kinds of new things, and it's just going to take forever. You know? But some people learn best like that, and they produce amazing results. Like when you give them an assignment and you say, okay, you do it the way that you do best, and you give them options, wow, they're going to come up with some amazing things that you, especially if you're not a random slinky type person, you would never even think of, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. Let's go. Sure. Yes, of course.
You know, in Guy Singletary, I think
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate slinky person.
Yes. Guy Singletary, if you know Guy is slinky. He might also be a little bit teddy bear too. Who thinks that they're a teddy bear here? Nobody wants to admit it. I know there are some teddy bears in this room. Just tell me then what you think a teddy bear person is. Pastor Sam. Okay. They like things to be comfortable. What do we think of when like a nice teddy bear? It's cuddly, warm, fuzzy. Oh, yes. Warm, fuzzy. Let me write this down. Warm and fuzzy. Yes, it is comfortable.
You mean like I want to associate it to myself? I'll understand it if I relate to it.
It can be like that, but these people, I mean, when you think of like you take your teddy bear and you hold it close and you're interacting with it. It's very relational. That's the word. Relational. They like feelings. They're very social. They're very interested in people. They're the ones that when Pastor Schaller says, go find someone that you've never met before and pray with them after you ask them what their needs are so excited. And they're running here, there, and everywhere with a big grin on their face. And they're sad when it ends. Oh, I have to go back to my seat now. I was just really getting into this. This was so much fun. They're really social. And so, what are these people like? They're very community-oriented. They like working in groups. Oh, yeah. Okay, work in groups. It's a big deal. Things where they can, what do I want to write down here? Anything that's interpersonal. You can talk about yourself and how you relate to things, like you were saying, Pastor DeVries. Like, oh, yeah, you see these people. Yeah. Oh, you're trying to teach something, and they're like, oh. Yeah, that reminds me of the time when, and then they have to tell you all the details of, when something happened to them, and it's like, oh, come on back in here. We're getting way off topic here. But they love that. Go find a person and discuss things. They love discussions, and they love those kinds of tasks. Whereas, I'm one of those people when Pastor Schaller says, go find another person that you don't know and ask them what their needs are and pray for them. I am not that person. I'm the one like the deer in the headlights. I'm cringing. It's like, and I'm hoping that nobody's going to come and find me. Blend in, camouflage, close your eyes. I'm the pole. Yes, praying already. Or, I'm so thirsty now, I think I need to go to get a drink. Get a drink of water. So, we all fit into one of these categories one way or another. We all like to learn in certain ways. We all like certain kinds of tasks. You know, there are some students that, you know, if you just gave them the same kind of assignments over and over and over again, it's just horrible for them. You know, because they never get to express themselves or be who they are. You know, and the ones, especially like the slinky type people, you can pick up on them a lot of times when you're teaching math or history or something. They are drawing all over the page. They've got this whole universe all around their notes and everything else. And you think that they're not listening to you, but they are. Because that's how they need to be doing something like that to actually be receptive. You know, and you think, they're ignoring me. They're not learning anything. Doodler. You're going to doodle your life away. And yet you go and you ask them, what did I just say? And they can tell you. And they can tell you. And then if you give them, say, I want you to show me what you learned in this class, and they might come out with, an artwork, or they might a play or a dance or a poem or something like that. And it shows you everything that you taught in that class. And it works for them, and they remember it and they've learned it. But I can't make everybody do that. I mean, sometimes you do. You say, okay, everyone, we're going to do an art project. And some people are like, yes. And other people are like, no, I can't even draw a stick figure. You know, it's like, just do your best. Just do your best. You know, and you know that there are some people that are gifted in certain areas. There are other people, they want to like just do in-depth research, and you say research papers, and they're like, yes, and everyone else is going, what, are you crazy? Are you nuts? But it's like, yes, I finally get to like go in depth and study snakes because we're doing biology, and I love snakes, and I'm gonna know everything there is to know about snakes. You know, little kids like this, and they can tell you every dinosaur that ever existed, or every kind of truck that there is. You know, little girls can tell you all the princesses and tell you all the stories that go with them, and you make one mistake and they're like, that's not right. That's not right. You got it wrong. That's Sleeping Beauty. That's Sleeping Beauty. That's not Snow White. No, that's kind of like the magnifying glass. They zero in on something, and they love going into the details, and they'll pick something apart and they'll put it together again, and sometimes in a brand new way. And it's awesome. You know, paperclip people are very detail oriented. They're very organized, and sometimes they get very good grades, especially in school. Because a lot of school is like that, you know, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and memorize this. They love the memorization tests, you know. They don't want to have to think creatively because that's just ridiculous. You know, imagine that you were living at this time. Well, why would I have to do that? I'm never going to live at that time. That's gone. Give me something practical, you know. Give me something to do. You know, that's a little too artsy-fartsy for me. I can't think like that. I just don't get it. You know, I just want to do what I need to do and give me an A. You know? But you need people like that. The world needs all kinds. Otherwise, there's certain things that just never would happen. The world would not be a beautiful place. There would be certain types of leadership that would never happen. You know, and the body of Christ, all of us somehow peacefully coexist, and it goes on. We end up doing things logistically, building things out there. We build an edifice. We put on Easter plays. People are going detailed and writing syllabuses for courses and putting doctrine into booklets and things like that, very detail-oriented things. People are studying and going into depth and giving amazing answers on Grace Hour and all kinds of stuff like that. And some people have a little bit of everything in them, and that they're very fortunate. You know, they're very wide open, and you know, and they're warm and fuzzy and interact with people, and they're creative, and they can get things done according to a list, and they can research things. But you know, I think that's rare. But you've got all these kinds of people, in your church, in your Sunday school class, in your youth ministry, you know, in your Bible college class where you're teaching. And so you want to keep these things in mind when you're designing learning activities for your students, so that you're not always just doing the thing that you like to do. He's like, because I understand this, and I like this, and so why wouldn't you like it? Because that's not the way God designed me to be. He made me one of these people. Deal with it, you know. Teach me. You have to reach me. You have to reach me. So that's part of background. You know, your pre-assessment is getting to know your students. I mean, I think that's one of the themes that's coming out tonight is you got to know your students so you can meet their needs if you're going to be student-centered, because they're the ones that are important. You're doing your little small group Bible study, and it's not there so that you can build your little kingdom and people will praise you and say, wow, you're an awesome man of God, or wow, you're the greatest woman Bible study teacher ever. You're better than Beth Moore and Joyce Meyer and every one of those women combined. You know, wow, you're way up there. You know, it's like, really, that's not why I'm here, is to get your praise. I'm here to help you, to learn something that you can use that's going to be practical in your life, that's going to maybe transform your life. Okay? So we're talking about pre-assessment, and that's a really important thing, is to know how your students learn and then making things happen for them. Yes? Mm-hmm.
Billy already referred to this, another kind of categorization that we have about learning types. Do you have any word about that? Like, how would you relate?
Hands-on? Kinesthetic?
For example, you have hands-on learners.
Well, hands-on can be, it can fall into lots of the different categories. I mean, you can be a hands-on slinky type person, because I like to get my hands into paints and things like that, and paint and do all those kinds of things. I could be a hands-on magnifying glass type person. I like to take things apart and put them back together and learn how those things work. Okay, so we're going to get into that. We're going to be talking about the different kinds of objectives. That's actually the next topic. Okay, and the different kinds of things that you want to do with students. Okay, wow, night is flying by. Are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need to stand up? Stand up, stand up. Okay, stand up. Do some neck rolls. Oh, that feels good. Shoulder roll. Oh, forward and back. Twist from your hips. Oh. Ooh. Maybe go down. Stretch out your lower spine. Oh, that's good. You don't want all of your blood flowing into your butt. No, you want it to go to your brain. Get going. Yeah. It's just going down to that lowest level, and it's got to get up here. Okay. All right, I'm just going to talk about really quickly here other elements of a lesson plan. Then we're going to focus on objectives, and that might be as far as we go, and that would be really awesome if we got that far tonight. And I think you will have been exposed to and hopefully learned a lot. I'm hoping. Okay, so other parts of a lesson plan. We've talked about objectives, and we're going to go into that in depth in just a moment. The pre-assessment, getting to know your learners, their backgrounds, their interests, but also the way that they learn. Another thing that you would want to have in your lesson plan is your materials. Once you know that you're teaching and you know how you want to teach it, then you're going to know, gee, if I want to do this, we're going to do an art project for this one. So I need to have crayons, and I need to have scissors, and I need to have colored paper, and I need to have some paste and stuff like that. Or maybe it's here, and it's like, wow, I better make sure I bring my iPad and my stylus, and I need my notes, and I need the textbook, and I need to bring the work that they did last week because we're going to be going over it. So all the materials that I need, I want to put that in my lesson plan so that I don't forget or leave anything out. That's just a practical thing. Then there's what we call the warm-up. It's called other things if you read other people's literature, but a warm-up is just like an activity like we did at the beginning of class, where you just kind of get people's minds into what we're doing here. You know, I'm not thinking about, you know, what happened to me before I came into the room, or maybe what's going to be happening after I get out of class. I want to bring the focus into what we're doing. We're doing this kind of thinking. We're focusing now on U.S. history. And so I'm going to relate it to a current event. And so I bring up a topic and I say, what do you think about that? What just happened? Did you see the news? And all of a sudden everyone's talking about it, getting their opinions in, and we're discussing, and all of a sudden we're in class. We're in the moment. Okay, we're engaged and we're doing that kind of thinking and we're ready to go. Okay, so it's something that just gets people into what's going on. Then we have the part of the lesson which is called the presentation. It's called other things in other literature, but I'm calling it the presentation, where you have planned out kind of like step by step. This is what I'm going to be teaching. This, I mean, in some cases, when you're first starting out, you almost script it. This is what I'm going to ask. This is what I'm actually hoping that they're going to say, because they need to come to this conclusion so I can go to the next thing. And then I'm going to have them do this activity. And I am also saying for this activity, they're going to need to be in pairs. For this activity, I'm going to have to hand out this handout. I mean, my lesson plan, which I don't know, it's just disappeared. Oh, I put it down here. Oh, here it is. I have things like that written down, like when do I give out this handout? Information that I want to convey. Highlighting things like, oh, this is the part where I'm going to use this vocabulary word that they're probably not going to know, so I better make sure and explain that word before we even get to it. Okay, so you step by step how you're building your lesson, how it's going to flow, and maybe how much time you expect each thing to take. You're sort of estimating, hoping, but you got to be flexible. You got to be a little slinky-ish, you know, when you teach. So your presentation, step by step, what you're doing in the lesson. Then sometimes you have what we call the practice section of the lesson. If you're teaching people a skill, then you want to have them practice it in front of you. Maybe you've been demonstrating it, but like you should be able to do it because you're the teacher. You know, I'm doing the math problem up here and I make it look simple, but I need to know, can you do it? And so I say, okay, I'm going to put something up on the screen and I want everyone to take out a fresh piece of paper and take out your pencil. I want you to show all the steps, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to watch you and I'm going to help you. I'm going to assist you. I'm going to guide you and I'm going to encourage you and watch what you're doing. So you do some practice in front of me so that I can see, wow, everyone is doing the same wrong thing. That can't be a coincidence. That must be me. That must be me. Because I really mustn't, either I left that part out, or I went too fast, or I really just didn't explain it very well. And so that's happened to me many times, and I say, oh, okay, once I notice that this is trend, it's like, hey, okay, before you go any further, because you don't want people practicing things the wrong way, because then they're learning it wrong and it's hard to unlearn it. It's like, stop. Okay, we need to do this again. Erase. Okay, now I'm gonna do this problem with you. Okay, and let's try it. Let's try it together, okay? And one thing that I'll just throw out there, as a teacher, one of your roles is a model for your students. Okay, whether you like it or not, you're modeling something for your students all the time. Sometimes if you really knew what they were learning from you, you'd be like, oh, you know. But you want to intentionally sort of like present yourself as you are the expert on the subject as best as you can be, and you want to model what we call expert thinking. So I get up here and I say, okay, we're starting off with y equals 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. Okay, now, when I see that as an expert thinker here, as a mathematician, and I'm teaching you to think mathematically. You're all going to be awesome, brilliant mathematicians because you're in my class, and that's what I produce here. Okay? When I see that, I think, oh, look at that. There's an exponent there. It's a 2. And that's the highest exponent in the equation. This must be a quadratic equation. Oh. And so what does that mean? What do we know about quadratic equations? And you get all that information out of it. Yeah. And so now, and I take them step by step and I tell them what goes through my head, even though I can almost do it automatically now without thinking. Like how many of you, when you get into the car, have to think, okay, first, I'm going to shut the door. Second, I'm going to reach over my shoulder and grasp this belt buckle thing and snap it firmly into place over here. Third, and you step by step by step just to get the car started, and then if you drive a standard, my left foot is doing this. No, you just like jump in the car, and you're just going off. And before you know it, you're home. You're like, how did I get here so fast? I don't even remember the things that I saw. And you're on autopilot. You're singing with the radio, or thinking about other things, and you're home. Because you are an expert. But if you were a driver's ed teacher, you would be teaching everyone step by step. These are the things you have to do. I am the expert. Okay? So we do a little bit of expert thinking in front of our students as we guide them through this practice. And then we say, okay, now let's try it again after we've answered any questions and people are feeling kind of confident. Okay? And we give them some practice under our supervision. If you're teaching a skill, that's what you want to do. You don't want to send them out of the room and say, go practice that somewhere. I'm teaching you soul winning. And I get up here and I do a little skit and they say, okay, before you come back next week, go out and try it. That's going to be really intimidating if you've never done it before. You might want to have a little safe practice in the classroom underneath the guidance of an expert or mentor. Or then you might want to go out with them and be part of it and coach them along. That's part of the coaching thing. So practice. Then we have evaluation. Sometimes we call this assessment. What we want to know is, did they learn what they were supposed to learn in the class, and how well did they learn it? I have to have some way to see, did my students meet the objective? Did I do a good job? Did they do a good job of learning? Okay, and so when you actually, one of the first things you do when you come up with your objective for the class is right away you need to think, okay, by the end of class, how am I going to figure out if they've really got it? And then you try to fill in everything in between. That's the presentation part and the practice part. How am I going to get from this to this? How am I supposed to know if they got it? Because if they don't have it, then I'm not going to say, okay, now go home and open up the book and do practice problems 1 through 30. Because they're just going to do 30 problems wrong and learn it all wrong, 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 wrong. Okay? And I might say, okay, guess we're going to have to do this some more tomorrow. We'll practice tomorrow. It's not your fault. Let's just keep working at it. Because we try and we try and we try, and I let you know we're trying. Okay, so evaluation. And then, if you think that things are going well and you have assessed this, then you say, okay, let's do some application. I'm going to send you out there with a little bit of homework. Go and try it. Go and try it. At least at this level, and I don't expect you to be an expert or master it, but at least try this little bit. See if you can do it. See if you can do it. So that's all the parts of a lesson plan. Okay, and I'll give you this handout with more detail for all of you who are awesome credit students here. Okay. Let's just talk. We got a little bit of time left here. I just want to talk about objectives because they are the thing that drive the lesson. I keep turning the page. Objectives. And there's 3 kinds. And I'll explain these. These are all vocab for people that don't know them. Cognitive, affective, whoops, and this one we call psychomotor. I know it sounds scary. Psychomotor. Okay. This one is sometimes referred to as head, the head objective. Affective is the heart objective. And the psychomotor is sometimes thought of as the hand objective. You can represent them by those three things. Now I can go into tons and tons of detail about this, but I'm not going to do that because we've been here and I don't want to overload you with information. And I want to save some time to do a little bit of assessment and talk to you and see if you learned anything tonight. But I'll just explain these things as clearly and as simply as I can. And for those of you who are the credit students, I also have a handout about this so that you can see it in detail. And it also gives like some really good objectives written out for certain kinds of like Bible lessons or Christian education type things. So you can see what it means. Okay, your cognitive or your head objectives are things for dealing with people's thinking and their knowledge. Okay, the thinking objectives, the knowledge objectives, the understanding objectives. And people much smarter than I have come up with like 6 different levels of cognitive objectives, from the most very basic to the most sophisticated. Okay, and the lowest level cognitive objective is just called knowledge. Knowledge, and it's just your ability to recall memorized facts. And sadly, in lots of places, that is the highest objective that is expected of students, is just to memorize things and regurgitate them. It's not really high-level thinking. I mean, it can be hard for some people because they don't have really great memories, but it's like the lowest level type of thinking. And so you don't want to have all of your objectives to be just written on that level. Yes, there are things that do need to be memorized. You know, when you're in school, you got to memorize those times tables. Okay, you got to know them well, so they become automatic. And so that's fine. That kind of, low-level objective, these all have their place, but you don't want to just park it down there. You want to kick it up to the next level, which would be comprehension. Comprehension is when you get meaning from information. You're processing information. So it's a little bit more sophisticated. It's not like I just memorize it and automatically and without thinking, I can tell you stuff. So I'm comprehending now. And I give you lists of verbs that are used when you're writing objectives for each of these things. Like comprehension, you explain, you illustrate, you rephrase, you translate, you convert, you draw something to show that you understand. The next level up above that is called the application level of cognitive objectives. You use a concept, a single concept, to solve a particular problem. And you might be using that information in a new situation. So I've learned something, but now can I only use it if, like I always think of math because I taught math for so long, can I only use it in this particular kind of an equation? Or if you see a new equation or you see a new word problem, do you recognize that I can use that knowledge and apply it there too? That's the application level. That's a higher level of thinking. And you can write objectives. You want to see if students are able to apply things. Like, here's an example. Learners will explain how agape love could be used in several case studies on family conflict. Okay, so they've been learning about agape love, but now, is there an application for that? So we give them some case studies, and they're able to say, oh, yeah, that's where that would fit in there. The next level above that is called analysis. Analysis is when you're breaking things down into their parts. You separate things into its little separate components. So you can classify and categorize. You can compare and contrast. So you're doing analysis, you're doing categorization, comparing, contrasting. You might be exegeting. Okay, that falls under analysis. You discriminate, you outline, you diagram. So analysis, breaking things down, seeing how these things work. Okay, then you go up another level and you're into synthesis. Synthesis is where you create something new by combining different ideas. I've learned this, and I've learned this. I broke that down, and I've learned about all that and how that works together. And now I'm going to take all these different things that I've learned, and I'm going to put them together and come up with something that at least I think is new. It might be not that new because there's nothing new under the sun, but under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, you know, sometimes you learn this, and you learn this, and in the middle of, you know, your study, all of a sudden he's starting to correlate all these things together. And it's like, wow, fresh Rhema, God, thank you. Individually, those things all had their own individual meaning and awesomeness to me, but now you've put them together in a special way, and it's just like giving me brand new life. And I want to share that with other people. That's synthesis. Then the next level above that is called evaluation. Evaluation is the highest level of the cognitive objectives. It's when you can objectively judge the value of material according to specific criteria. So there's a standard. So that's when you get up and you can argue something. That this is value, this does not have value, that's right, that's wrong. I can judge it, I can evaluate it, I can validate it, critique it, examine and weigh it, appraise it. So you can see like there's different levels that we want to bring our students to the higher levels of thinking if we can. We don't want to leave everything down there in the basement. Just memorize this and you'll be okay. You know, because we all know, you know, people that walk around with lots of knowledge, and it's like, wow, you might be the champion on Jeopardy someday. You might win a lot of money, but you can't even apply this stuff in your everyday life. You're just walking around, you know, you're the trivia man or something like that. When we get into the affective domain, the heart ones, it has to do with feeling and value. And it's the emotional side of learning in life. Whereas the cognitive domain is like the rational side of life and learning. Okay, the affective domain, the most basic level there is called receiving. And that just means you're willing to listen. You're willing to listen or pay attention. And for some people, you know what it was like probably when you first started coming to church or Bible school. You didn't have like a huge capacity to sit there for a long time and listen. And after a while, it was like, whoa, it's going way over my head and I'm blowing my mind here now and I'm just writing stuff down, but I don't know what time is it? When's the break? You know, and but you know. But then you build up your capacity and go beyond just that level. You know, that maybe that could be new people coming into your church, new people coming into your Bible study or whatever. You're just glad that they are there and they're working hard to listen and to pay attention. But then you want to go to the next level, which is responding. Responding. You're starting to actively participate. And you giving positive response. And it looks like they're accepting the ideas that you're sharing with them. And verbs that go with this is like they're able to share, they answer, they ask, they're volunteering, they're testifying, sharing their testimonies. Now they've gone to the next level. They've seen the value and they're starting to feel it. Okay, it's doing a work in their heart. That's why we call these the heart objectives. Then beyond that, We get into what's called valuing. Now they're starting to make a personal commitment. They want to be personally involved in it. And they're willing to express a belief about the value or the worth of something. That's awesome. You know, so many people leave out the affective objectives, the affective domain, because they think it's touchy-feely. It's like, how can you measure that? But it's like when you think about it, it's like really, really important. It's the thing that's making a difference in somebody's heart. Okay? And these are the people you know that they've reached this level when they're willing to go outside of class and talk about what they've been learning inside of class, and they're excited about it. Because it's taking on life, it's taking on meaning for them. It has that much value that, wow, you don't know what you're missing out if you're not in this class. Do you know what we learned about tonight? Awesome. The next level above that is called organizing. Organizing, where they're starting to incorporate these values, these beliefs into their own belief system. It's becoming part of their life. It's becoming internalized. They're not just talking about it, now it's becoming a part of them. And they're starting to act and think about, acting in accordance with and thinking about what are my convictions about these things. And they're setting priorities, they're integrating, they're comparing, you know, this is what I was, this is what they're saying is important, this is what the Bible says, and now I'm starting to think, yeah, what the Bible says is important, I want that to be part of me. And so I'm starting to make room for it inside of me. And then you reach the highest level of the affective domain, it's called characterizing. This is cool. Characterizing, where you act consistently with your new values. And when it becomes your way of life, and you know that people have reached that level when people speak about that person and they're known for these qualities and these values in their life. Like, wow, you know, soul winning. Like, oh yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, that person is a soul winner. They've reached that level. That's how they're known. You know, it's not just that they value it and they think, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, I think people ought to do that. But now it's becoming part of the, I ought to do that. And then all of a sudden, they do it. They do it and they're actively doing it. They have reached that characterizing thing. And people, first thing you think of is like, well, yeah, she's an amazing soul winner. The last kind of objectives are the psychomotor. And this is what I do. What I do. It's like the action or the behavioral part of learning in life. What Piero mentioned about the kinesthetic, the getting involved with your body. You know, it's not just going on in your head, not just going on your heart. You're acting it out. Okay? And there's levels of this as well. And I'll quickly go through these. The first level is called perception. And when I'm observing something going on, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it. So I'm listening, I'm observing, sort of detecting things. And I'll read all the examples here because it makes it come clear. So a learner accompanies a skilled soul winner to observe how to move from general conversation to discussing spiritual matters. So you take them out under your wing, you're discipling them, and they're just watching you. And they're figuring out, okay, so this is what you do. Oh, okay. Then the next level, it's called the set, S-E-T, the set level. And you're ready, it's readiness to perform a particular action. So you can be mentally ready, like you know the steps. You could be emotionally ready, you're willing to try it out. You're willing to perform the action. And then there's also your physical readiness, like being properly positioned or, you know, I don't know how that applies to soul winning, but, you know, I can think of in terms of sports and being in the right position. And like an example of this is learners learn key points and scriptures and practice witnessing to classmates. So you're doing this in the class, and so it's like, okay, now I'm going to try it out for myself here under the guidance of others. I'm going to try it out on people who, if I say the wrong thing to them, I'm not going to send them to hell. You know, these are all other believers here, and we're going to practice on each other. Maybe we're working with the beads, and we're talking about, you know, what this stands for and how to talk to people. So I'm willing, mentally, emotionally, physically. I've got my beads on. I'm ready to go. Then we go to the next level. It's called guided response, and there's 3 levels of guided response. Okay, so I'm just going to lump them into like 2 of these. Guided response is when you're performing under the guidance of some mentor. And it's trial and error. Trial and error. But somebody who knows how to do it, the expert, is watching over you. So now you're going out again. You're discipling this person. You're trying to show them how to soul in. But now they're the ones. They're not sitting back and watching you and observing you. Now you're letting them go up to the person or knock on the door and initiate the talking. But you're there as like a covering, and you're ready to jump in to assist if needed, because you never know what's going to be on the other side of the door when you knock. And you've encountered many situations, and they might open the door and they might go, oh, this has never happened to me before. And you're there to step in and help them. But they're there and they're going to try it. They're going to try it. And then the next levels above this are called mechanism and complex response. And basically it is guided response, but taken to the next level and the next level. Okay, when you're at the mechanism stage, you can do it with some confidence and proficiency. So you're beyond what you were. You know, if you're taking this guy out after a while, you know, he's encountered enough stuff. He's not going to be shocked and taken by surprise by what's on the other side of the door, what somebody else says. You know, so now they have a reasonable level of confidence, and you have some confidence in them, and you don't have to step in all the time anymore. They're more proficient. And then when you get to the complex response level, they can do it at a very high level of proficiency, and they're skilled at it. And I mean, you don't really have to do very much of anything at this point. You're saying, yeah, you could lead a group. You can take your own people out. Okay? The next level, these are the last 2. The next level is called adaptation. It's where you take the skills that you've learned and you use them to perform new but related tasks. So I'm very, very proficient, I'm skilled, and I'm ready to go to the next step. I can take what I'm doing and I'm ready to apply it to something new or different. And the example here is learners adapt their soul-winning dialogues, that's the one that was from the book, to be able to reach people of different religious and cultural backgrounds and languages. So I know how to do this, but now I want to learn Spanish, and I'm going to learn how to soul into people that speak Spanish. Okay? And maybe in their culture or the culture of the country that you're doing missions work in, you know, it's better if you approach people this way. The same things that you would say to an American, you might not say to a Chinese person if you want to lead them to Christ, because they have a whole different cultural background. So I'm going to take the basics of what I know, and I'm going to try to, in a new way, in a new situation, maybe with a new culture, a new language, or maybe I'm encountering someone that believes totally different from me. It's not like someone says, yeah, I'm a Christian. You say, oh yeah, really? What does that mean? You know, now you're encountering somebody that says like, yeah, I'm a Hindu. And if you don't know what Hindus believe, it's like you're spending your time trying to figure out, how do I approach this person? So you learn more and you become expert at that. And the last one is called origination. Origination. This is the highest level of your psychomotor. When you create new performances after you have developed your skills. So you're inventing, you're designing, you're composing, you're creating, you're devising. And the example given here is learners develop new ways to witness or to train others to witness in order to share the gospel clearly in our ever-changing society. Okay? Our world changes all the time, and there's new things that come our way. The devil's always coming up with new strategies and things like that. And it's like, wow, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? I mean, technology changes. How are we going to adapt our methods for something new? How are we going to use this technology to do something new that we've never done before? You know, and so I'm going to adapt myself and come out and create some new app. I'm going to create, you know, something that makes use of computers or iPads or whatever else you can imagine. So I'm gonna stop here. I actually have more. That's one thing you want to do as a teacher. You want to overplan so you don't run out of stuff. It's always okay to leave things out, and it's skill to know what to leave out and what's not important. And the things that I'm leaving out, I don't feel bad about. It's like, yeah, if they knew, that'd be wonderful, but if they don't hear it from me, it's all right. So we have I talk so much. We just have 5 minutes. And all I would like for you to do, if you are a credit student, you don't have to do this if you're not a credit student, just take out a piece of paper, and this is for my benefit as a teacher, because I like to know if people learned anything. Remember our objective? One of our major objectives tonight was figuring out what is the big difference between preaching and teaching. What is the big difference between preaching and teaching? And I hope that maybe from all my talking about teaching, and maybe from all the things that you've heard already about preaching and your exposure to preaching, write down just one thing that you learned tonight that you think makes teaching different from preaching. And if you're a preacher, I'd be interested in knowing, like, is this something that you are this is going to change maybe the way that you approach teaching? Like maybe you are teaching in your own church's Bible college, you teach a class, or maybe you have like a Bible study where you do teaching in a small group. You know, is anything that you've heard tonight going to change the way that you do things as you approach teaching people? So what's one thing that makes teaching different from preaching? And is there something that you're going to do different now based upon what you have learned tonight? And I'm not looking for, your doctoral thesis here. It can be 2 or 3 sentences. And then when you give that to me, then you're free to go. I hope this has been informative, at least, and that you don't feel like, wow, why did they ask him to come here? But I thank you for your kindness, your attentiveness, your willingness to participate. You're very gracious. Put your name on your paper. If you didn't learn anything, you can say so.